What's going on, y'all? So, just in the spirit of things, I just feel we're going to honor the ancestors. We're going to honor a group of women who were shot by police. And, you might have not have heard of, but Breonna Taylor. After we say their name in African spirituality, we say Ashe, or we say Ayi Bobo in Haitian spirituality. So we're going to say Breonna Taylor, Ashe.
Ashe.
Ayi Bobo. Sandra Bland.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Atiana Jefferson.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Atiana she was shot. She was inside of her home and police shot in her window. She was playing video games with her nephew. Corin Gaines.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Kendra James.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Taisha Miller.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Pamela Turner.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Alberta Spurrill.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Ayana Jones.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Darnisha Harris.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Miriam Carey.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Catherine Johnston. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Tarika Wilson. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Rika Boyd. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Sharisa Francis. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Sharice Francis, excuse me. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Chantel Davis. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Yvette Smith. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Shelly Frey. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Tanisha Anderson. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Alicia Thomas. Ashe. Ayi Bobo. Melissa Williams.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo.
Ashe. Ayi Bobo. I don't know. I just felt moved to do that. Everybody talking about honoring the ancestors. We have to, if you can't honor the living ancestors, which is we living, we alive, the folks that's, I think in the Bible it says, if you can't honor your neighbor and your neighbor is right next to you, left or right of you, you understand? But you're talking about you honor God. You're talking about you honor your ancestors and such. The real honor is honoring those folks in front of you. You understand me? And respecting these life forces and these folks while they're alive.
Ashe.
I think the term is giving people their roses while they're alive. But I just want to do that. We're going to go ahead and get into this.
Get into talking about what's been happening here in Massachusetts in our cannabis industry. Today in particular, we had the commission meet specifically on the delivery regulations, and we really haven't spoken much recently on delivery, specifically after we submitted our recommendations to the CCC and we did our video job.
The okie doke. So the delivery okie doke. So right now it's the delivery okie doke looks like. Some people are happy with the way things are going. There's some things have changed.
So out of the last meeting, they retracted on stating that they weren't going to do tiered licenses. So now they have, instead of, it's not tiered delivery licenses, you have two options: the limited option, and then what they're calling the wholesale delivery option, or the what most would deem the more economically viable option. The limited option is basically the Uber Eats model that they were pushing from the gate, and everything that they had in regs for delivery only license, they've switched it over now and they're calling it the limited. And these are all, everything that they talked about today is up for public comment. And that's going to come up for public comment. So folks are going to weigh in. It's not completely over. However, when we talk about equity, when we talk about what's really happening here in Massachusetts wants to run around with this title of being the first in the nation to do, and then they brought it up even in this meeting today, the first in the nation to even structure their delivery licenses where they have a limited license model where you basically can run from a retailer and deliver to a consumer directly. no storage, no overnight storage, no wholesale, no ability to purchase directly from any other establishment outside of the retailer.
And so, what about the light? So, and then they waived the fees, the fees that were supposed to be waived if you're going for the top tier, I guess.
The wholesale delivery license. So what isn't explicitly laid out in the modified regs that Commissioner McBride was spearheaded with pulling together for the CCC, it was not laid out clearly are those benefits that have been laid out for EEs, SEs, those in the equity program, do they extend to this delivery license model? And when you look at the delivery section, the regulations and what social equity benefits program are, that's what they say. They say that your application fees are waived and your licensing fees will be 50%. What they did go on and do in this with the delivery license, the limited license, sounds like they're going to waive the license fee altogether for the limited folks. So it's no longer going to be $5,000 or $2,500. It's going to be the first year it's waived, and then moving forward it'd be $2,500.
I just don't understand why this seems so difficult for them to do the right thing completely by us. Why does it always have to be loaded and loaded with what they call barriers of entry, more barriers of entry?
So when you look at the souped up delivery license, the delivery model that folks were pushing for, the one that would create a viable business model for us, when you look at those, that model, that's where you see all the extra bells, whistles, barriers, whatever you want to define it. So now you have there's no complete waiver of the license fee. In that case, the license fee is on par with the retailer, $10,000. But then you should get 50% off. So it's $5,000. But what ends up happening is they literally have made the delivery license on par with the retail license in terms of the requirements. Everybody who's gone through the pre-certification process, which is like 35 plus folks, the numbers may be higher. I haven't checked the numbers in the last month to see where they are with the pre-certs. All of that those numbers are higher, and everyone who's gone and received their pre-certification, your license has been dubbed a limited delivery license. So if you want to pursue that limited option, then you can move forward with your pre-certification. Now, if you want to pursue the option where you can have a facility, where you can have storage, where you can access bulk purchasing and engage in contracts with cultivators, product manufacturers, all that, you have to go back to the drawing board.
So it seems like they're real accommodative to these people with money, because the limited model benefited folks who already had establishments, folks, like it was going to be an Uber Eats, you go sell my weed. So they pretty much kept that model.
You go deliver my weed.
Yeah, you go deliver my weed. They pretty much. So they kept that model. I don't know why, but you know why. To benefit, we have to benefit those players that are already in the game. And that it seems like there's a lot of compassion toward these folks with money, toward these folks with standing and power in the industry. My whole thing is like, who's getting paid? Who's getting paid to continue to make sure these folks is thriving and we not? Like, you understand? That part right there allows them to stay in the game and do their thing. And then, for those trying to reach up and get the bigger license.
The minute we started asking for something that would actually lead to generational wealth as a structural license option, that's when they said, okay, well, now we're going to put all the barriers that you said existed with the other license models. We're going to put that in play also, if that's what you want. And so to say that they're doing something for social equity outside of the exclusivity period, which they have in their these updated regs, it shows that they've updated to 3 years of exclusivity. And that is important. That's something that we said they should have had that across the board.
And if you haven't noticed, if you're in the equity program, that status means, fraction more and more when they do the DBAs, the minorities, the
DBEs,
veterans, the women businesses. You understand? So like the biggest standing we have was the foul shit that they did to us the first 3 years. And I'm trying to get the community to realize that. You understand? As soon as they said white women or white folks, period, that's why having white folks in the equity program is kind of fucked up. You understand me? Because how does that mitigate? You understand me? The industry. How does that mitigate the racism, the systemic racism,
perpetuating status quo
in the industry when you can have these white business owners? They can just pick white equity folks, like you see that's happening, or white women. I was hearing this one white woman. She was talking about they people was rushing her. And she didn't even know she had status. You know what I'm saying? They was rushing like, you're a woman. We can get in through you, and that's exactly what they did. You understand me? So for all y'all in the equity program, you understand me? There's so many general applicants who can get in with your same status now. You understand? And this is what they've been doing, diluting the status. This is why it was so peculiar to me that the social justice chair would constantly be telling, the municipalities they can do what they want. You understand me? They can write their own thing. Other folks, constantly talking about women. That's a shot at minority women. Because when you say women, you're talking about white women. Because when you say minorities, that's all of us. That's all of us, baby. There's minority women. There's minority LGBT, minority veterans. You know what I'm saying? So when you enter these categories, only thing you're doing is you dwindling the status of the folks who it was supposed to help. You understand? The equity was supposed to help because of the white supremacy in the industry already. Because we were criminalized for the plant and y'all made money off of the plant. So now the whole status, even look at Chris Crane. Chris Crane went and found him a white boy. He found him a white boy over here that was arrested as an equity program. That's in the EE program. And I'm not talking, and yes, white folks was arrested. And yes, women is being disenfranchised. And so is these other groups of folks. But we talking about a specific charge for a specific group of people. We talking about the victims of marijuana mass incarceration. This was a real war waged against the real people. You understand me? So while folks are trying to act like they standing with these folks and standing with that folks, they not standing with us now. So how they talking about they standing with Breonna Taylor when you ain't standing with us now? You ain't that boils my blood so much because you see how my wife and I, my family, we honor our ancestors. We honor the ancestors. We honor our ancestors. We live our life like we are the living ancestors. You understand me? So we don't fear death.
We recognize the sacrifices that our ancestors have made for us to even be here. And this is why we aren't complacent. We're not complacent, and we're very vocal about the injustices that we see, because we're not going to sit there and say, Breonna Taylor or any of our other sisters and brothers who have been killed unjustly, and then turn around. Here it is in a space like the cannabis industry where we continue to see these injustices, and then we're going to turn around and say everything is okay. Things are moving forward. Yes, we're getting justice. We're not. That's not happening at all.
I am truly hurt. I'm truly hurt by these individuals because you allow these folks to go around and spread lies about my wife and I, but you still got these folks in your groups. I'm talking about the Grant Smiths and all these folks. You still got these folks and individuals in your group, and you talking. My wife and I are fighting like dogs for your equity. We peep game. Months ago. That's why I said, where was the equity advocacy? In October 2019.
Today's meeting, there still was no equity advocacy.
Still no equity advocacy.
If you paid attention to whatever the pushback was in terms of the regulations pushed forward, you have to ask yourself, well, where do we have advocacy when it comes to the board? Where is our representation as regulations are being drafted to hear that we're going to have our voice at the table? Because the person sitting in that justice chair is confused. She's confused because in the same breath, she wants to disrespect our ancestors. She wants to talk about Breonna Taylor. She wants to talk about the injustices that we're facing across this country across every sector. Then she wants to turn around and focus on minuscule issues that pertain, if at best, maybe to everyone in the industry. But where were you talking about the regulations and what are we doing to ensure that those harmed by the
we watched the videos, the social justice tier. We watched the videos. We watched the PIPs. She's always talking about women, 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 women. Even to go so far as a company said minorities. They were going to hire minorities and have minorities on their PIPs. She said that's not good enough. You need to add women. So her charge has always been for white women. You understand me? Not for black women. You understand me? You would have sent police.
But she'll ride on black women. She will ride on them.
You would have sent police.
Massachusetts black women out there caping for her in positions of political power. She absolutely will. And that's her legway and her segue to access our community. But then when it comes to our community accessing this industry, you know what they're pushing in front of us? Expungements. That's our celebratory factor. An expungement of the crime done. That's what we're supposed to be celebrating. That is our justice. That's not justice. It's the same. It's the same.
I've had people think people treat expungements like this a magical ticket to get something. I've had expungements. Expungements are for criminals who fulfill their duty to society or whatever else was the charge that the judge said you had to do. You was a good behavior for a little while, and he gave you expungements. Expungements are for criminals. Criminals who fulfill their sentence.
I don't understand how that's hard to wrap around people's
They're not.
mind.
Expungements aren't for victims of a crime. You can't expunge your victimization. Expungements are for criminals. So you still view me as a criminal, one, because it's still a Schedule I drug. You understand me?
Yep.
And you still out there arresting folks. Like I said, I've had expungements. I've had my oldest son was arrested for marijuana. They tried to charge him as an adult. Same thing happened to me. I had to write a whole letter to the judge. So I've been a child arrested. I have a son that's arrested, and I've had expungements. I've had expungements on my record. So what is this magical thing who are the experts on expungements here? That all these folks is championing expungement. Have you ever had an expungement? What magical thing you think that expungement is going to do for the war on drugs? When the cops are still jumping on folks for marijuana, children for marijuana. So I'm confused about that one. But that's the best we can do. And it's who's championing? Folks who getting licenses. Brothers and sisters who's getting licenses. Where's the folks who ain't getting licenses? Why they not championing?
Not just that. Where are the black folks who are we're not settling for survival, but we're actually looking to thrive in humanity, not just to survive as humanity. That doesn't even recognize our humanity. Expungements, and it blows my mind because right now I think we're in the middle of some type of event that they're having in Massachusetts, and the pinnacle of it is this celebratory expungement and sealing of your records tied to marijuana. That is something that we're championing. Let me say this.
And you still can't get bonded with no expungement. You can't get bonded. You can't get no federal job. They can look at all of that. So when you talk, I don't know. It's not going to stop you from getting the McDonald's jobs and the Wendy's and Walmart jobs, and those are good jobs. It's not going to stop you from that. And it should. That's called discriminatory practices. So if marijuana was the foul done to a community, to people of white folks who was arrested too. If it was done to a community of Americans and it's the foul, why don't you make anybody looking at or using your marijuana arrest discriminatory practice? There you go. You don't need to have an expungement. Nobody has to come and join and sign up, because I heard folks ain't signing up for it anyway.
The people who this needs to reach, it's not even reaching them. So if the goal is to ensure that people aren't being left out from benefits, whether it's job opportunities, whether it's health benefits, housing benefits, whatever local benefits that in the past that marijuana arrest would have precluded them from, then capture that under discriminatory practice, and you'll cover that. Not only will you be able to reach those folks and begin to address their harms, you'll actually reach a greater audience, because now the folks don't have to come out and go through the process and the hoop and hoopla. It's something that's made available. All that needs to be done is you just need to know that this is the right that you have. However, that's not the case. And we as a people are pushing whatever those in power, which the white people in power say is okay for us to push forward.
And but the charge is equity. The charge is equity, and you have to understand what's going on, and it's okay if you don't understand what's going on, but you should at least trust folks that's in the same boat as you. If you can't trust folks that look like you, at least trust folks that's we in the same, but we in the program with you. So why is folks looking at us like we doing something foul and we not bringing the best thing? The PIES program was the best thing. Your status is diluted beyond diluted. Anybody can get your status now. Any minority, any woman, any veteran. They don't have to go through the rigorous process of them looking at your background and all this other stuff like we had to do when we got with the equity program.
Yeah. So going back to what you were saying, and a lot of our conversation really is about how do we even achieve justice here, and not allowing us to settle for something as mediocre. And actually, it's second-class citizenry expungements. Because one, you're allowing them to say that, okay, you did something wrong, and they're going to erase it, and they're going to erase what they did wrong as well, and that's it. No compensation.
Let's go back. Let's get back into this meeting.
The transition then comes to this meeting, right?
What are they talking about that in the meeting? They weren't talking about that today.
No, they weren't. They're not talking about.
I don't want to harp on expungement. I don't want to harp on expungements. You know why? Because there's a group of black folks out there pushing it. So I'm not about to argue with no black folks on no expungements. Do your thing. What's next about this meeting?
Something else that was talked about we started to talk about it at the beginning, which is basically why the push for, and it's going to be interesting to see how they roll this out, but everyone who has a pre-certification license, you are now in the limited delivery category. And if you want anything above that, they are going to increase the requirements for the pre-certification. Now, the pre-certification process was simply to be a preliminary process. And so for them to turn around now and say that they're creating an additional barrier in that created process, for them to say that is, if I were sitting in the chair representing and being a voice for advocacy, justice and equity in this industry, my voice would be utilized to say, well, we don't need any additional barriers in the pre-certification process. We just want to know that the folks coming through have the ability to follow the suitability and the requirements necessary to at least establish a business. We want to know that they're able to look at the regs, that they're able to pull together a team to go through this and put together a business plan, put together the necessary operational plans and submit that, and we can do a background check on them and they can move forward. Now, to say that you're going to add additional requirements for the pre-certification does several things. One, it pushes back the process and the timeline for when people can move forward with their license. So all of these people who have already gone through that hoop and hoopla are going to have to go back and submit more information, which is this is part of the bait and switch that the CCC likes to do.
At the end of the day, you need PIES. We need PIES. You talking about the barriers and everybody crying about the ACAs, all of that stuff. We got kicked out of the social equity group. We got kicked out of Morris's social equity group. I don't know what's that about, but everybody talking about the barriers of entry.
Well, our voice on social equity is very specific. Our voice is very specific, and it goes towards the ones that you don't hear. Those harmed the most by the war on drugs, and so we're unapologetic about it. We're going. That's the type of conversation. That's the angle our language is going to be. And if you are so myopic in your view that, well, this should be for everyone, then you fail to understand what the war on drugs were. You fail to understand what it means to say that you need full participation particularly.
Well, you don't understand equity. You don't understand equity. You don't understand equity.
Basically.
You don't understand equity.
Basically. Because what that means, what equity means is the accommodations aren't going to be the same for everyone. The accommodations are going to be such that they're going to accommodate for the barriers that you specifically have faced and experienced and are continuing to experience. And that's not happening.
Well, the big okie doke was it wasn't about black, white, Spanish, or nobody in Massachusetts. It wasn't about any Massachusetts residents. It was about these other folks with big money, white big businesses getting in Massachusetts first before Massachusetts residents. So now they're trying to extend it to residents and trying to push. That's why they're flooding the equity program with all these other people with status who didn't have to go through the equity status. They're flooding the program as a oops or I'm sorry to Massachusetts residents. So for the first 3 years, 4 years, damn near now, you understand me? Nobody got equity, nope, except big businesses from out of state and out of the country. Nobody got equity. Me and my wife, we looked at who was, bottlenecked that whole thing, who was kind of a part of the process here in Massachusetts from the beginning. We looked at the organizations, SSDP, Forefront Ventures, Vicente Sederberg. We looked at these groups, and we seen their corporate person on the CCC, and we started connecting some dots, and we was like, yo, hold up, we can throw this at them so they can push a real charge for equity. They did some slick big business shit. That's some American shit. Some American big business shit. You understand me? Period. You understand? They did that to us, and they fanned equity in front of you, black and brown folks, like it was about us, so they can kind of slick us. So my wife saw what happened. So we was like, yo, come on, let's bring this to them, hit them up with this pies pro. We saw the problem and the solution. We saw the problem and gave you our solution, and that solution still stands and still works. The pies program. It mitigates the barriers of entry, all barriers of entry, and it gives these people in the equity program. It puts us in the industry. I think that the biggest people who were against it was the Cannabis Control Commission. I think out of towners was down with it,
and the people that are in their pockets.
I think out of towners was down with it. I think MSOs was down with doing pies, and they still are. They're still MSOs, multi-state operators who are in Massachusetts. Like, hey, that's what y'all want. I'll give y'all. The Cannabis Control Commission.
Their own versions of it.
Yeah, you see them doing their own versions of it. You see MSOs, multi-state operators, doing their own versions.
Or even local.
The Cannabis Control Commission ain't want it. You understand me? They didn't want it. They don't want pies. And I don't know what y'all drunk on. I don't know what y'all high on. I don't know what the fuck y'all smoking in the equity program. But y'all, our status is gone. Our status is gone. If you ain't noticed it in the last 2-3 years, now you should notice it more than ever. But they done put 400 people in another program. You understand me? And then they opened it up to minorities, minority business owners, women, veterans.
Anybody that falls under the DBE category.
Anybody. Have you had a dog die in the last 2 years? You need to come get this status in the cannabis industry. You understand me? Have you lost a family? Anything. So if you haven't seen that our priority status is gone and that we need to have some unison, and you looking around and nobody has no ideas other than us, what's the issue? Is it our skin color? Is it because Grant ain't tell you it? Is it because Grant ain't tell you it? Is it because you waiting for Shailene to tell you? Hey guys.
Well, that's not going to happen.
That's
not going to happen.
We showed you the October 19th video. If you ain't get it then, you ain't seen the October 19th. Was October 19th? October 20th.
It's October 2019.
The October 2019 video. We showed you the October 2019 video.
They only had one video in that. And so one of the things to reiterate when we talk about pies, for those who haven't, who aren't familiar with pies, pies is really a structured positive impact plan. If you have been tracking with anything in Massachusetts, one of the things that we're first in the nation to do is to have the establishments also be responsible for positively impacting the community. And there are different ways they can do that. What Pies does is say, okay, for you, the biggest dogs here in the industry, the ones who are making who are, pulling revenue most effectively in our communities across the state, we want your positive impact plan, we want it to be structured so that it's commensurate with how much profits you're making here.
You got an illegal priority status at our expense. The state put us in front of everybody's face like they was really trying to do something for black folks and brown folks and people in the equity program, because there was white folks in here too. They made it seem like they was trying to do something for equity. It was a lie. It was a lie. The only people who ate off of that was white folks in the equity program. Why? Because other businesses was like, shit, I'm a white man. I'd rather find somebody white. That's what they did. They had their choice. You understand me? And other white folks just had the resources to get up and get their shit up. Look who got licenses in the equity program. Look who went through. But that's okay, fine. You got your licenses, but that still did nothing for equity, because we still have 90 something, 97% white ownership, white cannabis license ownership in Massachusetts. So come on, man, that shit was a hoax. And black folks, we need to come together and demand something real for the war on drugs crime, the war on drugs reparations. We got folks coming back from Iraq saying the war zone they just came from ain't got shit on what they doing to American citizens in America. You understand? Unarmed, they killing unarmed men. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that, he said, in a war zone. He said you can't kill an armed man. You can't kill an armed man. An armed man walk up to him, you can't just kill him because he armed. And they in a war zone. AK-47 on his shoulder. He said he couldn't, you can't just, he said if he would have shot him, he'd be in the jail. Because there's rules to engagement. And you mean to tell me ain't no motherfucking rules in this engagement? You could just kill black men for cell phones, for looking black, toy fucking guns, anything, a fucking Snickers bar for this fucking war on drugs? You kicking in doors, the wrong doors for this war on drugs? You stopping and frisking for this war on violating constitutional rights? Violating constitutional rights. How many war crimes for this war on drugs? How much war crimes? This is a real motherfucking war. And you talking about expungements for what you about to give us? To rebuild us, to rebuild our communities, our families? You got our neighbor. We don't even got no neighborhoods. You destroyed our communities. Everybody looking at us like, oh, look at these jokes. When you got a fucking government plotting on you, that ain't conspiracy theory. You just said, I'm sorry. You said, I'm sorry for the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Ain't no conspiracy theory now. You waged a war against black and brown men in America, and you won't even give us our fucking licenses. So what you really owe us? And when the black community really gonna say something that's worth something? The black leaders, the black gatekeepers, the black motherfucking boule, when they really gonna say something that's worth something? That's going to rectify and rebuild our fucking communities. Huh? Playing around with fucking licenses when you owe us more.
You don't hear equity conversations in these meetings, and they should be in every single meeting. Point blank, period. Your job is to regulate, and as you regulate, to ensure full participation, particularly from those harmed by the war on drugs. This is what your legislation says. This is what it says. And so if that's your responsibility, that's what we should hear every single time. And then not just hear it in your rhetoric, because that rhetoric was there when they were pushing all these multi-state operators and all these other licenses through, and just sitting there wondering, well, it's the barriers. Well, here it is. We've identified all the barriers that you already knew about. We identified a solution for that. And you it's not even that you don't talk about it. You refuse to talk about it, because even when your advisory board brought it up, you refuse to acknowledge how it is that you can hold our industry accountable, because while they're profiting off of something that a whole community sector and population of people have been disproportionately, the numbers disproportionately affected, and that effect has had long term. It's not something that just happened 5 years ago when or 7 years ago when
absolutely not. When you use it for justification to kill a Breonna Taylor, absolutely not. That's war on drugs shit. That's war on drugs shit.
That's what that was about.
It's still going down.
That's what it was about.
You can it's a black person with drugs. Oh, you can treat him inhumanely. These are less than citizens.
And make no mistake, so when the CCC doesn't like the fact that we call them out and we're saying you're not doing your job, you haven't addressed equity, it doesn't matter what you say, your policies and the effects of your policies, the impact, the results, the data don't align with anything equitable, and their response to us is a threat letter to send police. But then you want to turn around in the same breath and say, oh, those you want to, first of all, specifically call out Breonna Taylor's name, but then just talk about the injustices that the communities are facing. You're perpetuating it. This is the cognitive dissonance. If you read the Massachusetts Marijuana Social Equity Report, at the end, we talk about this operating in cognitive dissonance, which is you are saying one thing, but your actions are the complete opposite. And so it's, you could call it tricknology, because I cannot for the life of me really believe that these people are as intelligent as it is when it comes to making business decisions that benefit big dollars. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to making decisions that benefit the community, they all of a sudden they do the exact opposite. Today's meeting at every juncture should have been, okay, well, for the equity applicants, because this is who is going to benefit from this, and the barriers that we've consistently see, how are we mitigating that? I know we want to ensure that we're able to monitor and ensure public safety, but how are we mitigating barriers? That you didn't hear that. What you heard was our justice chair pushing for more scrutiny of agreements, stating that technology agreements and third-party agreements should be included in the pre-certification process.
So thirsty.
What does that have to do with the pre-certification process?
More barriers. She want to know what we doing. She thirsty.
Basically, because the way the system was already structured, you're going to get the agreements in the provisional process, but now you want it in the pre-certification process?
So thirsty.
That's what you're pushing for? How does that support equity? How does that show justice in the system? The fact that you even have us doing extra work in and of itself is problematic. But okay, you want to push it under the guise of, well, we're separating it so that the work that you do push forward at this time, we'll be able to vet it so that you don't waste your time doing all the other legwork, and you'll be able to have this certificate similar to what they said with the priority status, but you'll be able to have the certificate that you can bring around to the community and say, hey, we've already been vetted to this point by the state. And all we need is for the community to support our local plan and for this, the community to give us their agreement, and we can move forward with pursuing this license. Now, the social justice chair, her push is to include more things in that pre-certification requirement that has no bearing on it. Has so much, the lack of importance at that level is so great that even McBride said, well, why would we do that? From a legal standpoint, why would we do that? Because you don't even have, the agreements may not even be in place. They may not even have been solidified. It's so early on in the process. But that's the voice, that's what her voice was used for. And folks need to be able to distinguish the difference between someone speaking and someone advocating, because you can speak and talk about something all day long.
But what she does, all you got to do is go watch the CCC meetings, and you'll see who she advocates for and what she actually does when she's at her job, opposed to when she blogging and all this other stuff. You understand? And see what she really about.
And so it's fine to go in front of the community and get folks riled up around certain issues and say, here, this is an opportunity for you to make a difference and have your voice heard. But you need to look at what is it that they're asking you to have your voice heard about, and how does that, the same question we have asked since day one, how does that benefit equity? How does that demonstrate Massachusetts first in the nation to legislate equity? How does that demonstrate that we are actually not only legislating it, but this is rolling out in practice? And, we've focused a lot on the justice chair, but I'm going to call the attorney general out on it too, because she's also talked about the injustices with Breonna Taylor. But you're responsible for nominating, appointing, and identifying people to sit on in these positions.
A body that thinks it's a good idea to send police to our house for what? For advocacy on trumped up charges. This is
the attorney general. This is at most who the commission would answer to: the attorney general, governor, and treasurer. Now,
I'm still trying to figure out when we're gonna get a recant. Maybe it was a oops. I'm sorry. They literally got a letter out there that we showed y'all. We posted online.
You can see it on the website.
That they talking about
on the Facebook.
Our actions could get us arrested.
Our actions demanding for accountability, our actions demanding for equity, our actions demanding for real positive impact plan.
Our desire to be a part of the charge. So we're in the program, and all we asked to do was be a part of it, a part of the charge, not just get licenses. A part of the charge, a part of the complete charge, because we saw nobody was getting licenses, and we did some investigations and we saw why. the legal priority status. All these 100 plus MSOs who weren't operating and dispensing who got into Massachusetts. They were not operating in dispensing. I think we only got 40 something. More than half of them didn't even open up as RMDs. So it was a pay to play situation. A pay to play situation. So they can be real creative and let shit slide when it comes to everybody else. But when it comes to us, they want to add more scrutiny, more who's fucking with who, you and me.
And hold on, I think the guys was we want to make sure it's always for our protection, right? It's always, we don't want any predatory deals, and we want to ensure that there aren't any individuals who are violating the control limitations.
Somebody should have told somebody should have told Shailene to tell at the forefront Chris Crane. I think,
and they need to be looking at brand agreements also.
Brand agreements, forefront didn't on their page. They said they got control of 6 establishments on it, right on his page.
If you go to Forefront's
so
page,
tell Shailene she want to investigate somebody and direct the commission to investigate. She should direct the commission to investigate her relationship with Forefront and Vicente Sederberg and Chris Crane's brand agreements and Vicente Sederberg's brand agreements.
Vicente Sederberg, it would be more so their contractual agreements, because
equity shares.
So here's the other piece now, in terms of one of the things that they push forward in the regulations
property, when it comes who owns the
equity,
property.
When it comes to equity, is that they said that they want to see every single entity tied to an equity applicant's license, whether or not they meet that 10% threshold or not. If they have less than 10% equity, they want to see every individual. Now, if that's the case, one, that's discriminatory practice. You need to do that for every entity. And at that point, you will see, because part of Vicente Sederberg's contract is they will have 5% equity with a client in addition to whatever fees. So at that point, you're going to see that Vicente Sederberg has a lot of control, indirect, whatever the term is that they're using to justify why they need to see all of the players involved in it. I don't know if it's specifically for economic empowerment applicants or if it includes social equity, but I know for sure it's economic empowerment applicants. They want to push.
If they can be that creative about the scrutiny for us, why they not doing it for everybody else? It's been an attack on us with the status. And most of us, they can push around and shove around, as you can see. They can't push around my wife and I, and the ones who they couldn't push around, they got threat letters. They got the suitability thing. You understand me? And all this other things threatening to not get a license and stuff. And there's probably a lot more than just, my wife and I. People were scared to speak up. These folks is on some real thug shit. They on some real thug shit. And I'm waiting for some real types of investigations to go down.
Yeah, because the level of retaliation that they're flexing with their obscure processes and how they review licenses is horrible. And folks want to say that they're being transparent and accountable, but on the issues that it matters, that doesn't. It matters how long my application is in queue. It matters because it affects people's pockets. Big time.
So they flexing on folks like that. I know folks is going through it in the industry. There's a group suing right now. If you a lawyer and you want to get with us, get with us. We've been talking to a lawyer. We got some things going.
Yeah.
But if you're a lawyer, you can represent a law firm, get with us. If you want to join.
If you're about equity, if you're about social justice, if you're about equity, if you're about, and you're not caught up in the hype that, whose pockets you can get into in this highly independent agency, then yes, definitely reach out to us, because there's a lot more that needs to be addressed. One, that's not going to be captured in an hour-long session, and two, someone asked the question: wasn't the feds already investigating?
But that one, that's where we got the information about Vicente Sederberg because of that, and we was like, well, damn, these are some major players, and we started looking at folks because of that. But
yeah, through that investigation, and it was very specific because the host community agreement situation became so messy, even among the big players, that they called the feds in.
Yeah, it was the okie doke.
It was the
okie doke.
They said that this was because they're trying to protect the residents and the people and the equity participants. And you'll hear equity folks saying how much of a challenge host community agreements are. Now, if people were wanting to do something about that, there are two things. One, the PIES program. Why? Because the people who are making big money already overcame that hurdle. And in fact, some of them have control of numerous host community agreements that they haven't even acted upon. So that's one.
Which is magical shit, because I don't know how they do that.
And then secondly, we already said, the commission, again, in their boldness and their creativity and in terms of really just pulling things out of the hat, which the legislation allows them to do, all they had to say was, okay, well, any community that's not prioritizing equity, we're not reviewing applications from that community. Point blank, simple. What does that do? That means the big businesses, any cannabis business that's in that community is going to push the local membership and say, hey, look, whatever the local board is for that town, and say, look, we need to do something and get the state's equity applicants. We need to structure so that they can come in as well, so that we can get our applications pushed forward. But that wasn't the case. For some reason, no one could think that creatively and that boldly and have that type of priority review structure at the state level. And not to say that maybe staff members didn't say that, but it didn't come up from any other commissioners. Definitely not any commissioner advocating for equity or justice. Instead, they have us, and when I say us, I'm talking about EEs, SEs, constantly pushing that rhetoric. Oh, host community agreements are the barrier. Host community agreements are the barrier. So we identified the problem. Let's come up with solutions. We can't change the legislation. We can't go and make all of the legislators change, because Massachusetts policy in general, across the board, every industry faces this type of issue where local municipalities have a level of authority for their town through their bylaws and ordinances that often, if not supersede the state, that are more stringent than the state, and there's not much the state can do. However, so what does that mean? The state has to determine what is in their powers. What does the legislation allow them to do? And what does the legislation allows them to prioritize who is reviewed and when they get reviewed. So that's what they needed to leverage. That solution isn't anything grandiose or what do you call it? That's not something that's so far-fetched or new, novel. That's plain and simple. Okay, that's a problem. Well, okay, this is what we can control. We are already prioritizing and expediting and general applicant categorizing for individual applications. We're going to do it by municipality as well. Here it is. They're already saying how they're going to have a process for which municipalities can pilot the social consumption program. So you have a process where you're not only are they going to have a process for who, but just because you say you want to pilot it, you being a municipality, that doesn't automatically mean they get to be part of it. They have to apply, they have to meet certain requirements. And even then the CCC said that they're only going to pick 12. So if you're not part of that, you don't get to be part of the initial 2-year social consumption. Some more soap opera,
just a reason to just inflame and create drama in a place, in an area, when in anything that concerns equity, it's this big old drama thing. We don't have to be like that. It's a direct way. It's a decent way, to do things, and it's always some drama, but none of the other licenses who was available for everybody had this drama. You understand?
Nope, not at all. And so here it is. There were a couple other comments that were stated. I didn't get to catch them in terms of just kind of chiming in and what we've been saying. Yeah, there's a lot to figure out. We have a lot of information that we've put out on our website. Pedro, check them out. As an SE candidate, the CCC they're pushing the social equity cohort of folks, but then even amongst the social equity cohort, they have their the cherries that they've picked.
And the barriers of entry don't go anywhere. So, like, if they're not addressing the barriers of entry, what are they really doing? And I think we've shown that in the other equity program. You understand me? So, because we've been making a lot of noise, they've been picking folks and trying to figure things out with certain folks and connecting folks but that still doesn't do anything for, the numbers. That don't do anything for equity. So we'll see. But it's the same thing. The same thing in the social equity program. My wife and I, we're in the social equity program. You understand me? They couldn't even accommodate everybody in the first meeting. You understand me? The first meeting, they couldn't. The very first equity meeting, they couldn't accommodate everybody. So, I mean, and we haven't heard much.
So right now with the social equity program, it's the different vendors are running their courses. That's pretty much it. The courses that we've been taking online.
Yeah, and people start from wherever they start from. So I don't even know what the end goal is or the overall picture, but it seems pretty remedial. You understand me? At best, it's like a conversation. You know what I'm saying? It's like, organized conversations with folks and stuff. So, but
as a webinar,
type stuff. Yeah.
And Michelle chimed in terms of got to look for those loopholes now, and I'm pretty sure she's talking about with the social consumption. Yeah, pay attention to how everything is rolling out. They actually did make some changes in the regulations now, also for social consumption. They weren't that big. I think they rearranged the order, the location of certain things. Again, just reiterating the fact that who's going to be able to pursue, who as in the towns, which towns are going to be able to even pilot the social consumption.
And then
you got 12 municipalities and potentially 500 applicants, 500 EEs and SEs who qualify to open up a social consumption site. And there are people who are actually waiting in the queue, in the queue right now and positioning themselves for social consumption. And you're only going to be able to open that up in 12 towns for the first 2 years. So here it is. It still hasn't even made it to the legislative table for us to even move forward with it. So we're looking at another, 3, maybe 5 years before we even see social consumption, unless, we have a big push from the community for it. So they didn't talk about social consumption today. The focus was on delivery, but the social justice chair did bring up something for medical marijuana patients, which I guess, that's good that she's reading the legislation. I forgot what it was. I think it had to do with wanting the limitations to be the same. So with medical marijuana, tinctures and ointments don't have they do have limitations in terms of the quantity because they're tracking how much a patient is purchasing during a 60-day period. But of course, with retail, that's not happening. And somehow she wanted us being the state, to do the same for consistency. And I think if I were in the seat of equity and I wanted to push a conversation on consistency, you know what my conversation would be? It would be, well, we have exclusivity period and we're identifying certain benefits for EEs and SEs to pursue these licenses. Let's expand that across the board, particularly in the medical space, because we know in the medical space, that is an area that we do not see participation at all. We do not see a diverse participation. We sure as hell don't see participation, whether it's patients or owners, from those harmed the most by the war on drugs. So as a leader in justice, a leader for equity in this cannabis industry, that's what you would have heard me pushing for, not for more limitations on the recreational side, under the guise of consistency. If we want to talk about consistency, let's be consistent in how we're putting equity first across the board, across the state, across the way we review applications, across the way we review applications from municipalities, consistency in terms of prioritizing the licenses regardless of what license type an equity applicant wants to pursue. They have priority. Right now, if you pay attention, the regulations are limited. That priority status applies to cultivation, product manufacturing, retail, and then now the delivery license that they're rolling out. It doesn't apply to a lab, independent testing labs, and it sure as hell doesn't apply to anything tied to the medical industry. So where's the consistency for that? Where's the advocacy for our representation there? Yeah, that was the other thing that was talked about earlier. And then I think, what was the last piece in today's conversation? We mentioned this a while ago. So here it is in the community, disproportionately impacted community, Black and brown communities, those harmed the most by the war on drugs. Part of that trauma from prohibition and enforcement, and part of the trauma that continues today created a stigma, and it's a stigma that lingers, and it's a stigma that has a strong impact today, particularly in these communities. And to hear our equity chair talk about cannabis, which is a plant that has medicinal benefits, and anybody who is a strong, passionate lover of the plant recognize it as a plant. To hear her refer to it as a drug, when we're sitting here trying to combat the stigma that's rooted in false information, that's rooted in propaganda.
With the labeling thing?
Well, no, this was, I think it was with the labeling piece. So to say that we need to have, I forgot how it is, but to reference this as a drug was disgusting. Like, how are you championing? What is it? Let's be consistent. And this is why I say, I just question the competency level of folks, because here it is. You have an agenda. You have a role. There are specific things that should be just basic. And one of them should be constantly your messaging around the safe. You want to use safe use? That's fine. The safe use of the cannabis plant, marijuana plant.
That was her argument in the pushback. Somebody who said that something. It was McBride said she pushed back on it. Something she said it was. She was like, "Well, it's a drug," something like that.
No, the chair said it was a drug.
Yeah, but something happened. What was the context?
So it was either in the context of the labeling or it was in the context of the patient. If it was in the context of the patient, Collins came back with clarification as to why they have the inconsistencies of in the medical side. Mm-hmm. They have limitations even for things like ointments and treatments. I think
she was saying something.
But so then going back to the labeling piece, the labeling of products. So with delivery licenses, one of the things that some folks have been really pushing for is the ability for us to repackage. And in the regs, they now extended that to retailers, and they have structured the wholesale delivery license to be on par or comparable to the retail license. But when you look at the certain privileges that we have, you're not seeing it. You're not seeing that consistency. And so one of the things people were talking about is white labeling, and the pushback from the chair was that the same product coming from different, owners or different brands should not be able to be priced differently.
Yeah.
Huh? Have you seen a slice of bread? Do you know that most water come from the same sources? And so the branding, which includes the packaging, which includes the whole entire movement that particular company has invested in terms of building a brand and something that people can be confident in, goes far beyond just what the product is. People buy things for a brand. They don't even buy things for just a product. So that the rationale to me didn't make sense at all. And in fact, I think people who are in positions, people who are in the equity position, and you're pushing an equity business, Some folks may not mind spending money with your brand simply because it's an equity brand. So for you to use this rationale that, oh, you don't support white labeling, which you could not articulate at the last meeting, but somehow you were coached. I mean, you remembered between now and then, and now you understand why your stance is that. How this supports equity, I'm still trying to figure out. But what I do know supports equity is allowing people to develop a brand that can leverage that. And so your pricing is going to be based on that. If your whole facility, your structure, your delivery model, everything is eco-friendly, that's part of your brand. Yes. So what if I'm getting the same flour or the same whatever product it is that you're getting, but you're not doing any of that, so I'm charging more for that? I don't understand in terms of a business model, because on the package, it's required for us to say where we're getting it from. So people just need to read, these things come from the same source, but marketing and branding in such a way has these folks charging more, or maybe it's the location. So for these different reasons, I'm still trying to understand where is the what is the advocacy for equity and justice? How does that benefit that? So much so that you have spent time pushing against it, not in one meeting, but in 2 meetings. Let's see. Let the market decide. It's up to the customer to choose. And but I agree. We agree. We're consumers. We agree, right? That makes sense. We're business people. Of course, we absolutely agree with that. However, from a regulator's standpoint, you want to regulate the market, but you're not being consistent in terms of how you're regulating the market. You want to regulate this one issue that doesn't even align with your position or your stance on anything else, to allow a delivery licensee to have that option to pursue white labeling or repackaging and so forth, would position them to be able to do more. Now, again, if they really cared about structuring tiers, then that's what they should have done. But they didn't do that. And my point here isn't even whether or not to allow or disallow white labeling. My point is, when we have people in front of us pushing an agenda, you need to pay attention to the rhetoric that they're pushing around the agenda, and it doesn't make sense. If your role is you sit here and champion that you are for equity, and then you invoke the name of ancestors in that as well, which I don't think we really address that piece enough. But the
ancestors address it.
Facts. If that's your role and position, but then what consistently across the board, your rationale for the decisions that you push forth, for the way that the things that you focus on in meetings don't align with that. And then you're upset with the fact that we're calling you out, because that's an important seat that you're sitting in. Every other person's seat, for someone who's really, keen on public safety, and they're still wrapped around their confusion about what this plant does and the quote unquote safety issues around it, so be it. But that's not the seat we're talking about. All of us should be concerned about the legal lens through which these regulators are operating. Why? Because we pushed so hard to have a legislation, and then we had our representatives push through mandates and laws that we actually support. So we want regulators that actually understand that and can bring that language to the table, which we do see at times. And so here it is. We have this specific chair for justice because of part of that mandate requires that we really address the harms done by the war on drugs, because that's what we want to be first in the nation to do, right, Massachusetts? And here it is. We're not getting that. I don't care what you're pushing, but when you break down your rationale and it doesn't make sense, it doesn't benefit equity, it doesn't align with justice, if anything, I can give reasons why it goes against it. I'm going to call it out. We're going to call it out. And here it is again. This isn't the first time we've called it out. We've called it out countless times. We've called it out, everything that we've just talked about in this meeting, whether it was the host community agreements, the lack of your support of a PIES program. Fine, you don't like us, you don't like our acronym, you don't want to engage us. What have you done to push the industry to to be held accountable for contributing in a way that aligns with the way that they're benefiting. Because we're talking about equity, right? And that's what equity is going to do. Where is that?
I think we see some attempts and some last minute attempts right now. My biggest thing is the illegal priority status.
Yeah, because you're starting from the beginning. Let's go to the beginning. Because
my biggest thing is the illegal priority status, and our remedy for that is PIE's program. So everything we
a little too passionate.
Everything we talked about today, everything we're going to talk about, the remedy is PIE's. You understand me? But the foul, what really happened, already happened. You understand me? So what are we going to do about what happened? You understand me? And how are we going to move forward constructively? You understand me? I don't see anybody in the commission trying to do anything constructive about that. You understand me? So they just keep taking an aggressive stance. So
yeah, legalese equals legal lies. Well, you know what? It's a little bit more for here in Massachusetts because there's always loopholes in the law, right? But when we talk about a legal priority status, the reason why we say it's illegal is because the law was very clear on what should be happening, and
the commission. If you go to the October, whatever,
I think it's 10th.
October 10th, 2019 meeting, the October 2019 meeting, you'll see the whole commission admits to this oops of a priority status that all of these folks from out of town got. You understand me? How they got it, who facilitated it, who bottlenecked it. All you got to do is follow the money, follow the individuals who benefited the most and see where they was. And we did that. You understand me? What we going to do about that? What constructively can we do about that? The PIE's program. The PIE's program. If you want to know about the PIE's program, you can go to our YouTube, Mass Mother Mary, or you can go to our .com, Mass Mother Mary. Anything else need to be said? What else? Anything else happened today?
In today's meeting,
what time is it? Okay.
It's been an hour. I think I think we covered everything. I'm trying to remember.
Where is the advocacy for equity? We gotta get it. We gotta get it out of live. If y'all don't see that we need to come together and start advocating together.
What was in context of white labeling? Okay.
Letting these folks who's being divisive, who don't have no solutions, where your solutions at? How you gonna talk about us, or how you gonna allow folks to talk about us and they ain't got no solutions? And our solutions is 100% ownership for the equity participants till we get 20% minority ownership in Massachusetts. That's our solution. We drew it up for you. It's called a PIE's program.
Yeah, there were. I don't know. Do we talk about the fact that they were requiring agreements? Oh yeah, we did the third party agreements, and then in there, I guess they're looking for delivery agreements. I think one of the things when I was reading through the regulations, I just kept asking is, are they looking for the delivery people, just the delivery folks to show their agreements, or are they looking for all of the establishments to show which agreements they have? Because if they were really concerned about equity and they wanted to make sure that no one was getting shafted or they weren't, predatory and unequal and lack of consistency across the board, they would require all marijuana establishments to support to submit whatever delivery agreements they have within 5 days of them drafting them, and have those be reviewed at the state level to ensure that they were consistent if they were really about equity. But that's not going to happen. As it stands right now, the onus is on the delivery licensees because that's who they investigate. They don't investigate the big dogs unless the big dogs aren't paying their pockets, the pockets of the people who.
And then they get real vocal about them. But just then, that's the bottleneck. That's the muscle, the whole circle, the whole SSDP Chris Crane circle. SSDP, MRCC, SSDP, Shailene Title. SSDP Chris Crane.
I thought you were about to break out into a rhyme.
SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy.
what you call it, Catrice said these laws were written for white people by white people, with us as an afterthought. So one of the things that is interesting about the demographics in Massachusetts, because you're right.
It was written for a certain kind of white folk. You understand me? Because white folks in Massachusetts wasn't even allowed to participate like that. You understand me? The first 3 years, they just now starting to get in. You know, but it was really created so these cannabis monopolies can go spread across America and do their thing, and then they go when it goes federally legal. These guys is already in place, and we even locked out even more.
It's not even when it goes federally legal. You see, this is what we're talking about. When you have people in positions of power, and not just in the decision making power, but in the influential position of power. When you have people in these positions, they get real creative. So, since the feds are taking so long to legalize marijuana, if you've been watching the news,
they going to do the state to state thing without the feds.
They're just going to have contracts with across state lines. So here it is. You're in Oregon, or we can even come closer, to Massachusetts. But hey, let's say here it is in Oregon. You guys are making so much.
That's what's happening.
You guys are producing so much weed, and you need some place to release it, and we can't go across state lines because the feds haven't legalized it.
It's still a Schedule I drug.
It's still a Schedule I drug.
Black and brown folks are still being arrested for it, and these folks is about to start trafficking. They about to start legal trafficking.
They are pushing to have contracts. So you and I'm in Massachusetts, I being, the Massachusetts government, and you being the Oregon government, you're getting a lot of pressure from the people that are paying your pockets, supporting your campaigns and so forth, saying, hey, look, we need you to enter into contract with all these other legal states so that we can send our products there.
I just want to get down, and I want the black community to get a piece of it. I want the black and brown community to get a piece of this shit. If we all saying fuck the federal government, stop arresting us, one.
Yep.
And let us participate.
That again, going back to the humanity of things, right? That's all.
The ironicity of stop arresting us, stop arresting children, attacking children, and let us participate.
Basically.
And shit, let us all sell weed state to state. I want to traffic legally too. And to be illegal at the same damn time. Shit. We just want to eat with y'all. That's it.
Yeah, so that was interesting that you mentioned that. Again, folks get real creative when you put the pressure on them to get creative. And that's all we're saying the CCC needed to do. And if you do that, then guess what? You're going to see folks still getting creative and figuring out how to game the system or just benefit or figure out how to get the people in their circle, which tend to be white folks, because that's just what the statistics say. That's who's in your circle, the people that are like you. And so folks will still try to game the system, but there are plenty of other folks who are out there that want to be in alignment with whatever the regulations are. And if they know they're going to get recognition, acknowledgement, and credit for doing the right thing, then that's going to be more incentivized to do the right thing. Not just, getting a pat on the back, but tying that to their renewals, knowing that other people are being held accountable to this. So that's all we're saying in terms of, if you're going to push equity, let's push equity. Let's really do something bold. Let's really be first in the nation. I just want the prices to come down and get safe access for everyone. Well, I think one of the keys to that would be for folks to be able to get their licenses and open up and be able to open up shop without having to deal with all this extra hoop and hoopla that the regulators have put in, and they don't put it in for everyone. It's not consistent.
It's from a pothead perspective. It's green fever. They realize, hey, people are born with these receptors in their body. They need this shit, so they tax and they charging. I think it'll all settle down. It'll settle down. It got to settle down. Because anybody can grow it.
Once they have those state-to-state deals, it's game over.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Well, part of the issue is the supply. The part of the issue is the supply.
Oh, you talking about for the price?
For the price piece, yeah.
But they still going to control supply and demand. They want to unify.
Someone's going to come in and start selling it cheaper.
They want a unified price. Once you got all these groups, these major groups participating in America in these states already, these major cannabis state to staters, whatever, they're going to agree on a price, and that's going to be the set price. You understand me? But not just that, you got the patents. You understand? You got a lot of things going on business-wise. Just a business-wise. It's business.
Yeah,
so
we talked about that a while ago. We haven't brought that up lately, but all these things are in the works.
We're
still fighting just for the humanity to enter the industry.
Just the humanity, but like Americans need to let go of this shit. Where in America ain't business happening? I'm trying to figure that out. You understand me? Where in America business ain't happening? We are surrounded by it. All we know is capitalism. Anything else you talking about is a dream because you ain't never seen it. Only thing we ever known and seen was capitalism. You understand me?
Yeah.
We was born in capitalism. They mass incarcerating black folks because of capitalism. Everything is about the money. You understand me? So, you talking about this imaginary land that we never seen. We never seen actualized in America. And you talking about that's supposed to be in cannabis someplace? I don't see it. They going big business it. They're going big business it, but there's something different about cannabis. Cannabis is spiritual. It's real different. We can all grow this shit. So what they going to do when they outlaw growing it? Because you can't even collect water. So that's probably like the future, but we might not see that in our lifetime, but but is there anything else? Because we all off topic.
We are, but part of it was engaging the folks who commented in.
Okay, that's what happened.
The comment was Massachusetts is the most expensive, and then we've talked about the fact places like California, you can get different prices depending on different qualities and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you look at a market like California got delivery, they got the black market thriving, they got cannabis shops popping up and down, they got all types of shit going on. Everybody eating, everybody's still eating.
Yep. Everybody
been eating in California, they're still eating. So this fear of, if this license opens up and this license open up, we ain't gonna eat. That's fuck shit. And the people headed at and slowing the process down, through the equity and all other shit like that. Everybody gonna eat. Everybody's still gonna make money off of cannabis. You understand? That's just it. It's a plan that provides for all. That's just it. Yeah. Yeah. It's really that's just been my experience with it. Forever, and that's what I've seen. That's what we see in other markets.
Appreciate you too, Katri. So with that, I think that was it in terms of commenting. The next steps are probably by tomorrow, within the next couple of days anyways. The CCC is going to talk about their process for what public comment specifically for the delivery regulations are going to be. And then they're going to convene again in the mid-October sometime to actually have a vote on the revised regulations, have a discussion based on the feedback that they received. It seems as though they're most likely leaning towards feedback just coming in the form of written feedback. I think it'd be very interesting to see if they have another open public comment for people to chime in online like they did previously. But we shall see. That's coming up. Stay tuned in terms of what's coming from us in the next couple of weeks. We'll be, continue tracking with that. There's a lot happening locally, election-wise and stuff like that. I think our message has consistently been the same to everyone that you speak to, and that you that when you're paying attention to any of these public figures who say that they're about equity, that they're about the community, ask them how. And if they're not saying something that makes you think, wow, and they're just saying the same rhetoric as before, then challenge them, push them. With that, until next time.
Yeah. Next time. Peace. Appreciate you joining us.